much for that introduction. Good evening, everyone. So let me open up the presentation. We will start the presentation. This session, I'll give you a brief as to how we are going to take this session. Yeah. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Okay. So today's session, we're going to, we have 4 to 6. This will be an introduction. There will be an introduction on intangibles. That will take approximately about 30-40 minutes. Then the next 30 minutes we will be allocating, 30-40 minutes we will be allocating for the understanding of copyrights, some small nitty-gritties in it, and then the remainder of the time we're going to spend on getting a hold of how to do the valuation. We are not going to talk about the standard, what the standard says. I'm not going to go into the standard. Standard is very clear.
Excuse me, you are not audible, sir.
I'm not audible. 1 second.
Sir, you are audible to us. Audible to me.
Yeah. Now, am I audible? Am I a little louder?
Fine. Now
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, we are able to hear.
You're audible.
Fine. So just give me one moment. Yeah, let's continue. So 40 minutes on intangible asset introduction, 40 minutes on copyright in-depth understanding, and then the remainder of the time we will be spending about 30-40 minutes on the valuation part. We're not going to go into the standard. I'm not going to replicate or reproduce whatever is there in the standard. I'm not going to read it back to you again. Standard is very clear. You go into the 5 methods, the 2 methods in cost approach and 2 methods in market approach, 5 methods in your income approach. All that is very clear. We're not going to go into that. I'm going to try and bring out whatever practical problems that is arising in these areas to have an overall understanding and the practical difficulties. We will allocate a little bit time for question and answer, but you don't have to wait for any Q&A session. You can post it in the I think there will be a Q&A box here. You can post it in the chat or on the Q&A box. As I move past 15-20 minutes, I'll look at the chat box and I'll try to respond to it. So that's how we're going to start. Now, the moment I say intangible assets, let's start with the very basic. How many of you have an iPhone? How many of you know that there is a phone called iPhone? I hope everybody has knowledge about the existence of a phone called iPhone. The most coveted phone. Any businessman, if he wants to, or a person who wants to project himself as in the to be in the elite circle, he definitely will have to buy an Apple mobile phone, an iPhone. I'm not sure people who are actually rich might use other phones, but people who want to at least show that they are in that elite circle, they can afford to buy an iPhone, will definitely buy an iPhone. Now, when you look at this particular slide, you can see how the brand has evolved. The brand logo has changed. Probably the logo is trademark, but the essence is not in the visual representation. If you see in 1976, it's a very cumbersome logo that they had, which actually went to the core of where the apple comes from. It's not the apple that is the concept, it's innovation. When Newton had the apple fall on his head and he came out with gravity, he came out with the concept of gravity, which was already, gravity was already in existence. He discovered that, okay, this is the reason apples fall, or anything that goes up comes back down again to the earth. That's an innovation. That's a thought that came to his mind. That thought is being borrowed by Apple in creating all its products. That's the core of the logo. Then slowly they very much simplified that logo. Slowly they moved on, and now it's only the Apple symbol in a silver color.
मेरा conversion है ECB to.
Okay, I've muted. So now that's the idea that we need to get. Now you have 2 phones that you're going to buy. One phone is a normal phone which doesn't have the Apple logo. It's an Apple made product. Let's say it's an Apple made product, and you have another phone, which is again an Apple made product, but then it has the logo. Which one would you buy? Obviously, we will attach more value to the phone which has the prominent Apple logo. In most of the cases, the phone covers or the cases that you go and buy will have a small hole in the middle of the phone at the back side to show this logo out, to show that you actually own an Apple mobile and you're not carrying a fake mobile, fake Apple. So this value that a logo, that an intangible item which is forming part of our memory, it comes and makes some, it influences some decisions that we make. That's called an intangible asset. For whom is this an asset? It is the asset for the company that utilizes this to market their products. Now, definition: intangible asset is a non-monetary asset that manifests itself by its economic properties. It's intangible, you cannot touch it, it doesn't have physical substance, it's non-monetary. Why is it non-monetary? Monetary assets are easily converted to cash. Anything that can be converted easily to cash, that is going to be called a monetary asset. An intangible asset, a lot of other tangible assets which are non-monetary in nature, but this particularly intangible assets or non-monetary in nature, you cannot just like that sell. It's a value that is acquired over time. So it's a non-monetary asset. It lacks physical substance. The most important thing in finding out whether an asset or a particular intangible thing is an intangible asset is identifiability of that intangible asset, number one. Number two would be it should have some economic benefit, or it should be able to bring in some economic benefit to the owner of that intangible. This is the second important condition that we have in finding out whether that particular asset is an intangible asset. Now we have one person, the photograph of one person who's here. If you can identify this person, please go ahead, put it on the chat. I'll try to make it as much relevant, as much engaging as possible. To take this to any fifth year old school, I mean fifth class student in a school, he'll be able to answer. Who's this person?
Edison.
Edison. Beautiful. This is Edison. Edison is famous for his light bulb. Not only that, he has so many patents in his name. I think about 2,332 patents he has in his name, both in the US and outside the US. The patents that he holds are his intangible assets. And based on that, he gained not only popularity, he was able to make a lot of money by marketing these patents, the intangible assets. Now, this is a pictogram that's going to run to make a little bit of graphical representation of how intangible assets are affecting our day-to-day markets. We are starting from the year 1956. If you look at it, 1956, what are all the companies that are there in the US which are making the maximum revenue in dollar terms? It's either automobile company or an oil company. GM, Ford, all these companies are all automobile company. ExxonMobil, Gulf, Shell Petroleum, these are all oil manufacturing companies. IBM was into manufacturing of computers right back in 1956 itself, but then that is the only company that I can see which is in the IT industry. Then we have some telecom companies coming in. AT&T is there. Some banks to come in between. But when you look at the top, you always have automobile companies and the oil companies ruling the rooster. I think it goes on till about 1990s. It goes on like that. So this was the point in time. 1960s, 1970s was the moon landing that happened. We had the Star Wars franchisee coming in. Telecommunication and movie media started coming in big time. but none of it came inside. None of it is in here. GM is here. At some point in time, GE was here. GE is not there anymore. Some manufacturing companies do come in. DuPont, a few other manufacturing companies come in. P&G, healthcare starts coming in. Aircraft manufacturer Boeing comes in slowly. Boeing is supposed to be one of the top innovative companies at that point in time. Slowly now we have HP coming in. Financial services, Citibank. Now, when you look at it slowly, Walmart, these kinds of the kind of everyday good resellers, traders, they are starting to come out. Insurance, AIG is here, Verizon, a telecommunication company, Citibank, financial services company, they are starting to take the center stage somewhere around 2000, 2005. This is a point in time when Apple got released, 2007. Apple as in the Apple mobile phones. They had the laptops previously, but Apple mobile phones, if you know the revenue structure of Apple, most of their revenue comes from iPhones. So 2007 is where they started actually making a lot of money. And 2012 onwards, you can see Apple growing up in the revenue charts. And slowly Apple has climbed up. Berkshire Hathaway is it's a consolidated portfolio of a lot of stocks. So I would not take it, I will not group it under any individual category. Now, after Apple, Amazon has come in. Two tech stocks coming up. You can see Alphabet, which is Google. They're also coming up in revenue. 2021, you have Amazon, Apple on the top. Walmart, obviously, the revenue is very high. And then you have Alphabet, AT&T, all these, Microsoft, all these are in the top 10 or 15 companies as on 2021. Now, this 2021 numbers, you can just look at it, freeze it in your minds. Let's move on to the actual value of companies from 2001 onwards. This is market capitalization, how much money that has been pumped into these companies. When you look at it from 2000 onwards itself, we don't see much of Walmarts. We don't see any automobile, not much of automobile companies here. We see GE there. We see Microsoft. And slowly we have some telecommunication companies. Walmart is way below. Though Walmart had the maximum revenues, they are way below in the market capitalization. But you see a lot of other companies like GE, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, they have more market capitalization than Walmart and other companies. Now, 2008, 2009 is when Apple started coming in. After their iPhones, they started coming in. If you remember, the revenues of Apple, even in 2021, was much lesser than Walmart. But when you look at the market capitalization, Apple is much, much, much higher than what the market capitalization of Walmart is. Now, this is 2011. This was the point in time when Apple had all the reach. Now, after that, we had Alphabet, Microsoft catching up. We had another company, which is your Meta. Now it's called Meta. Earlier it was Facebook. That would come in. They would catch the market. Meta is coming in 2014 onwards. Amazon is catching up. Amazon, initially, they were also something similar to Walmart. They had a little bit of tech. But then once they went into cloud, they tried out multiple. They even had a mobile phone called, I think it's called Fire Phone. They tried a lot of new things. They failed in a lot of new things, but they did not take it up. The failures were sidelined. They started looking at focus only on areas where they were able to succeed. And when you look at the current scenario, I think we have almost reached here. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, and then we have Tesla. Tesla, you wouldn't have seen the revenues in the previous slide at all. It had never come to the top 10. It has never come even, I don't think it has even come near the top 50 revenue making enterprises in the world or in the US. So that's where we are standing. In 2021, we have Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Tesla, Meta. For all practical purposes, Tesla is a technology company, more of a technology company than an automobile company. So how do these companies make so much market capitalization, derive so much value when their revenues are actually lower than certain other companies? Three things come into play. When you look at the balance sheet, you'll be able to find two things. One is the disclosed tangible assets. You cannot have undisclosed tangible assets. Every tangible asset is disclosed. That is one part of the value driver. Very straightforward. The second one is the disclosed intangible assets. As per accounting standards, you're supposed to disclose some intangible assets that you have borrowed or you have bought out from other companies. You'll have to disclose it separately. That is the second component. And the third component is the undisclosed intangible asset. This undisclosed intangible assets can be self-generated intangible asset, can be goodwill. You can give it any name, or probably the valuation of the intangible asset in the books is much lesser than what actually is existing in the market. So this second and the third part, intangible asset, which is disclosed, the undisclosed intangible asset, are the predominant drivers of the value of the companies in the market. You could look at it from this angle. In 1975, of the total value of 715 billion of the value of the companies, only 122 billion was intangible assets. Hardly anything. When you look at 2000, slowly it has started climbing 1.5 trillion. It has gone up to, where is my cursor? Of 1.5 trillion, intangible asset were 482, 33%. 4.59 trillion, 3.12 was intangible. That brings it to somewhere around 75%. 11 points in 2005, 11.6 trillion intangible asset was 9.82, about 80%. And today, 2018, 25.03 trillion, 21.03 trillion is intangible asset, again 80%. You look at it from this angle, 1975, it was 17% of intangible asset, 1985, 32%, 1995, 68%, 2005, 80%, 2015, 84%, and 2020, it's about 90%. It would have grown a little bit more also now. So this is the understanding that you might have to have. The total value of the company, a predominant part of the companies that are there in the market today is based on the intangible asset. Okay, fine. Now, what are all tangible assets? What are all intangible assets? Pretty straightforward. Your buildings, equipments, cash, bonds, inventory, anything that you can touch, anything which has a straightforward value, that's all tangible assets. Intangible assets are assets that only exist through their economic value, patents, brand value, customer data, backlog orders. Your goodwill is a form of intangible asset, copyrights, patents, technology developed, all these softwares, these are all intangible assets. Now, when you look at this particular chart, you will be able to understand only it's not that the intangible assets forming part of the total value is restricted only to technology companies and only restricted to the US. It is there in every country, and in India, it's pretty straightforward. HDFC holds the maximum intangible assets, which is about somewhere around 78%. You take all the assets in HDFC, you assign a value to it, tangible assets, and then you sum it. You take the market capitalization of the company, you compare 78, you will be able to arrive, you would have arrived only 22% of the value through tangible assets. The remainder 78% has come only through intangible assets. You should know, one thing that you'll have to be very careful about, HDFC does not sit only on its financial services. They also have a lot of technology behind it. That's number one. The second thing is it's the brand, it's the trust that they have built over time. For me, when I started my career in corporate, The only bank that I trusted, the only bank I thought would give me quick service was HDFC. Today things could have changed. I'm not sure. But at that point in time, HDFC was the fastest service provider. They had a very good user interface. When I wanted to transfer funds, I can easily do it. I had an app. All these things were there right way back when we started the corporate life itself. So that is the value that you'll have to see. You can actually see companies like Nestle. Lot of brands that are attached to Nestle would come as part of their intangible assets. And obviously in the US, the Apple is the company which has the maximum intangible asset intensity. Now you can bucket this on a strictly theoretical perspective. You can bucket intangible assets into customer-based, technology-based, contract-based, marketing-based, artistic-based intangible assets. Customer-based are related to customers. You have a customer, you have the list of customers, customer list to whom you are transacting with. Somebody wants to buy you out. When they are buying you out, they are not only buying your tangible assets, they are also buying out your customers. So you have an existing customer. The company, once they buy you, they will be able to service those customers. If there is order backlog that is there, those order backlog can be fulfilled. Sometimes if there is a change in management, we might have to inform, but backlog order will definitely be guaranteed to have been to be completed. So that is an intangible asset. Customer contracts, if that particular customer has signed an agreement where you will be the sole supplier, then that again is an intangible asset. Customer relationships, non-contractual customer relationships, all this is customer related. Then technology, patented technology. We valued a company which has patented a particular process of extracting oil. The way the oil can be extracted from the grains, that particular technology they have to the maximum possible extent how they will be able to extract. It has been patented, and through this technology they were able to do a much better job than other people. Sometimes they have licensed out this technology to other companies and they have made money out of it. When you look at BMW and TVS, they come together and they form a new enterprise joint venture where technology transfer happens. Rafale, the aircrafts that we buy, technology transfer happens to India. Those patented technologies carry a value that's again intangible. Computer softwares, databases, trade secrets, the 7 spices that all these fast food chains they talk about, trade secrets, the secret sauce, secret formulas, that's an intangible asset. Processes, recipes. In Seinfeld, there is a show called Seinfeld, in which there is one character called Soup Nazi who comes up in one of the episodes. If you have seen Seinfeld, he has a very curated list of soups, and for which he has a recipe in his book, which he makes every day, and he was able to command the customers for the price and the discipline they have to, how they would come and take the soup from him. He disciplines them. They have to come in a line. They'll have to do a lot of antics to get the soup from him, and the customer did it because the soup tasted a lot better. Then as the series goes by, you find out that one lady would be able to get hold of that particular recipe book, and boom, the next day it is out in the market and nobody goes to his place. Everybody have their own recipe and they make their soup on their own. So these kinds of recipes, they become an intangible asset. In process research and development, R&D again is a huge intangible asset. Contracts, licensing agreements, royalty agreements, advertising agreements, service agreements, supply contracts, lease agreements. I am able to get a beautiful commercial space in the middle of the city. If I am able to get it, if you are going to buy me out, if I am able to buy the normal, the place that I have rented out, it's for, let us say 20 years, I have leased it out. Normally in that place, if you go there, you will be able to rent it out for 1 lakh rupees, but rent it in for 1 lakh rupees. But I have done it for 20,000 rupees. The 80,000 rupees, if you buy me out, you will be able to profit of by 80,000 rupees if you also wanted to get a space there. Those also that is also an intangible asset. Construction permits, franchise agreements, mortgage servicing contracts, and broadcast rights. Now, marketing, this is where it's very simple for everyone. Trademarks, trade names, service marks, certification marks, newspaper mastheads, internet domain names, non-competitive agreement. These are all marketing intangible assets. Trademarks, you look at something and you assign a value to it. If somebody a jingle which comes to which you listen over TV, you will be able to recollect what is the brand name. When I say Vico turmeric, immediately you go Nahi cosmetic. That is the level of ingraination that has happened over a long period of time. When it has come, when the advertisement has come on TV, the Vico advertisement, it has gone in our mind. That is the kind of marketing that they have done so far, and that is the value that has a value to it. That is a marketing intangible asset. Then we have artistic intangible assets. We have plays, operas, ballets, musical compositions. A lot of people would be able to hear a song and say who has composed it. The ownership they will be able to relate. Song lyrics, advertising jingles. Again, advertising jingles, it carries two things. It is a marketing play, as well as it is an artistic. When A.R. Rahman composed that Airtel music, it is artistic in nature. The moment it is bought by Airtel, it is marketing in nature. So you might have to see on whose hand you're going ahead and doing the valuation. If it is at the hand of A.R. Rahman, it is the advertising jingle is an artistic nature. When you go into when it goes into the hand of Airtel, it is marketing. Motion pictures, music videos, and television programs. Let's move on quickly. I'll give you a broad idea as to what happens in everyday scenario. We go on to do valuation, we quote a fee, and then obviously they will ask for some kind of itemized bill where they would ask you to tell how many hours are you going to devote on this particular job, how many persons are you going to employ for this particular job. You give me an itemized quotation. So you are going to spend half a day time, your staff is going to spend about a day's time, and you're going to travel here to there, you're going to do these verifications. Totally per day, this much is the cost for your staff, your cost is so much is your the travel expenses, total put together, this much is your fee. That's how it's usually calculated. You might have listened about this story where a Serbian guy, he was called up by a shipmaking company. He's a very renowned shipmaker. He goes there. He finds out that the ship is not starting. They have tried everything humanly possible by them. Still, the ship is not starting. Then he advises, he calls up his wife. He says that you bring me this particular hammer from this particular shelf. She brings the shelf from the shelf. She brings it to the particular port. He takes the hammer, goes near the engine. He taps the engine in a particular place, comes out, starts the engine. The engine starts, the ship sails. Now, this is all good. He submits an invoice to the ship manufacturing company. He gives let us say in Indian rupee, he gives 1 lakh rupees. And these guys were shocked. What is this? You just came in with a hammer, you tapped it. Probably the petrol expenses, I can understand some 100, 200 rupees I can pay. Probably for the time that you have spent, maximum half an hour, 1 hour you have spent in going around and then tapping. So 2 taps, 3 taps, for that you're charging 1 lakh. Let us say 10 lakhs. He charges 10 lakhs. Why are you charging 10 lakhs? Because today's terms, 1 lakh is even 1 lakh or 10 lakhs seems very low. So how are you charging 10 lakhs? You give me an itemized bill. This guy takes a piece of paper, he writes hammer charges 100 rupees, traveling charges 100 rupees. The remainder 9,99,800 rupees is for knowing where to strike the hammer. So that's the intangible asset that particular person carries. So knowledge that he carries. So that component of intangible asset, it is valued by an individual himself. If he had given the quote previously, he would have gotten that 10 lakh rupees. Even if he had given the goat of 10 lakh rupees and after he strikes, people would come back to negotiate. That's where he stands. This is my intangible asset. Now, where do you go on to do a valuation of intangible asset? Financial reporting purposes. In case of acquisition or sale of that particular intangible asset or your entire enterprise as a whole, you'll have to do for the purpose of financial reporting, you'll have to do the valuation. In cases of impairment of asset, you'll have to go on to do an valuation of intangible asset. When, as per the Ind AS, now there is an absolute requirement to do an impairment analysis for all the assets on a year-on-year basis. In the erstwhile accounting standards, there was an option, but now it has become mandatory. You'll have to do an evaluation every year. So that's where the importance of financial reporting and valuation of intangible assets come. Next comes your tax reporting for the purpose of taxation to find out the fair market value so that the tax authorities would know whether you have transacted at an arm's length basis or you have done something else. For the purpose of gift tax planning, for the purpose of GST, the ad valorem taxation analysis, you'll have to do a valuation analysis. Then of intangible assets. Then you have intangible assets. It may be subject to litigation. Minority stakeholders would have filed an legal suit against the majority shareholders. For the purpose of settlements, you go for a valuation of intangible assets. Statutory and legal requirements, sometimes compulsory acquisitions, eminent domain proceedings would happen at court. Court would order for an intangible asset valuation. And the normal general consulting practice would have an intangible asset component in it. If you remember Kingfisher, the Kingfisher brand, the logo used to be valued somewhere in the tune of 3,000 crores at one point in time. Before Vijay Mallya left India, he was here, the airlines was here, the manufacturing of his liquor was happening, and only the logo had a value of upwards of 3,000 crores. And SBI took the logo as security, as collateral for their lending, and rest what happened is history. But then today the value would have been brought down to zero. I will not say zero, but much lower than what value it carried previously. But what is behind that valuation, where the assumptions went wrong, is what we'll have to take a look at. Now, it is the valuer's responsibility to understand the purpose of the valuation and whether the intangible asset should be valued separately or along with the group of assets. It will not be the clientele who are going to tell you this is how you will have to do the valuation. You're going to do a separate valuation for that particular asset or for a group of assets. This is the valuer's prerogative. You will have to do the understanding. You will have to do whether the method that you are choosing, whether the way you are doing the valuation, whether it is matching with the purpose for which this particular valuation is being done, it should be matched. Moving on, what are all the problems that we will face while we are doing a valuation? For the tangible assets, you have physical existence. In the case of intangible assets, you don't have physical existence. Pretty straightforward. That's the only thing that's straightforward. Measurement attributes. How do you measure a tangible asset? It is pretty straightforward. What is the production? You're going to switch on the engine. How many units it is able to produce, you will be able to immediately measure, and then you're going to value it. But in the case of intangible asset, how many Cokes can be sold in the market with the brand name Coke, and how many Cokes can be sold in the market without the brand name? It's a very tough call to make. You will not be able to get the difference. You will be able to get it, but it's not as easy as switching on an engine. Measurement of useful life and depreciation, again, it becomes a huge headache, because how do you go on to calculate the useful life of an intangible asset? You don't know whether it exists or not. For all it matters, you just make an assumption that it exists. You take some certificate from the lawyer that this has been copyrighted, and you then do a market study and you come out with its existence. It's like God. Intangible assets is like God. Everybody says it exists. You say it exists, you pray God. That's all. And you hope that it's the only God that is in existence. He or she is the only God that is in existence, and you pray it works out well. So in the case of tangible assets, Useful life and depreciation measurement is easier. It's very difficult in intangible assets. Measurement of economic benefits, how much money you are able to make, easier in tangible assets. At least the maximum that can happen is it might not work properly. You break it, scrap it, you'll be able to get some money. But in the case of intangible asset, even that is not there. What is there to break or scrap? Determination of comparables. You take an intangible, tangible asset, you'll be able to find a lot of attributes are attached to it. This has so much HP motor. This has so much capacity. You can find out another comparable asset. You'll be able to easily match it. When it comes to intangible, then there's no attributes. So when there is no attributes, how would you be able to compare? Then separation from business assets, easier in the case of tangible assets. You remove that particular asset. What happens? That particular line stops. You'll be able to value the other the company separate from the tangible asset. But in the case of intangible asset, if you remove it, what happens or what doesn't happen, you'll not be able to figure out that easily. Now, so as we earlier discussed, 40 minutes on the basics of intangible assets went on. Intangible assets, obviously, it comes with a cost. I'll complete with one quick broad idea showstopper on intangible assets. How many of you have had this particular chips called Lays? Lays, Lays chips. Everybody would have had. If you remember the local chips, it is not that chips. Lays is the only company that makes chips, or we did not have chips before that. We did have potato chips. It is made in India. Most of the local traditional potato chips were thin. The consistency was thin. But when you look at Lay's chips, it's thick. Now, these companies, they came to India. They tried to make chips, Lay's chips, the branding they wanted to make. They tried to sell it in the market. It was a very tough game. People were used to the thin texture of chips, and people were not ready to shell out the kind of money that they had to shell out for a different kind of chips. So what did these multinational companies do? They went on and they were able to they went on and they went on to make an consulting strategy where they took customers who are in the lower age range. So as in children, they went to the children. They introduced Tazos, they introduced multiple figurines, they put it in the covers, and they were able to make a profit out of it. Now, when the children started consuming it, obviously there were expenses. They have to make all these Tazos or other items that they are giving us freebie. They have to spend a lot of money for it. But when they are spending so much money, why would they do it? Because they attracted the children. 2000, early 2000s, 1995s, 2000, 2005. Now, the batch that they captured, 1995 to 2005, today, whenever you and me, when we would have been 1995, we would have been 10 or 12 years old. Today, we are 35, 40 years old. When you look at it, today, if I want to buy a chips, I don't prefer a normal, thin, traditional kind of chips. I go for the Lays. Why? Because I have been accustomed to having that flavor, that particular type of chips. The expenses that they made, the advertisements that they have made, the Lays chips for which Sachin Tendulkar would come, for which Kareena Kapoor would come, a lot of film stars would come, the competitions that were there, the runs that were there in the covers, all this formed part of a huge marketing ploy where it created that intangible asset. Today, it is able to reap the benefit. The company is able to reap the benefit. Anybody who goes on to buy, probably Pringles is now making a good marketing campaign, but then the original company that came in was Lays, and they are able to make a killing out of it. So this is something that you might have to have in mind. Now, moving on to copyright. Copyright is a form of intangible asset. It's an intellectual property that protects the original works of authorship as soon as the author fixes the work in a tangible form of expression. Should have been expressed. I kept it in my mind. I had this idea in my mind. I had this expression of an idea in my mind, and can I have it copyrighted? No, you should have, though it's there in your mind, you should have brought it out in a tangible form. Then only a copyright would be copyrighted. There are different types of works. It includes photography, paintings, illustrations, musical compositions, sound recordings, computer programs, books, poems, blog posts, movies, architectural works, plays, and much, much more. Now, to give a simple understanding, there is this beautiful woman who's there on the screen. Anyone who can identify her, I'll give you an example, or I'll give you a hint. At some point in time, I'm not sure whether she is now or not. At some point in time, this lady was much richer than the Queen of England. Obviously, this lady is also from England. That's a different story. But this lady was much richer than the Queen of England. J.K. Rowling. Beautiful. What did she do? Is she from a very rich background? Is she from, did she land up finding out gold? She had this beautiful intangible asset, which is a copyright for her creation, the Harry Potter. So she had written a book, and somehow it found its way through multiple people's hands and got created into films. It was a cycle. She wrote the book, it got created into a film for which she took some money, very meager money, and then it started going up like anything, and then she kept writing her books, and then that created more and more films, and she got more and more rich. So this is the story of J.K. Rowling and how the copyright for her creation, the authorship, she made her rich. I'll compare J.K. Rowling and Tolkien in one of the next coming slides, where you will get an understanding of how copyrights work. Different categories of copyrights do exist. Artistic works, paintings, drawings, sculptures, photographs, architecture, maps, art, engravings, they go into artistic. In copyright itself, we are categorizing them, putting them in buckets. Paintings by one particular person, very renowned person, again, that can be copyrighted. That goes under artistic works. Literary works, books, novels, poems, articles, compilations, computer programs, databases, and other written or typed work goes under literary works. Your J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter comes under the literary work category. Musical works, it contains noted sheets, musical compositions, songs, and instrumental compositions. Yanni, Michael Jackson, all these musicians who make music, they have their copyright for their original work. It comes under musical works. Dramatic works, cinematography, screenplays, scripts, plays, works, pantomimes, all these comes under the dramatic works. And cinematography, film in itself, which includes motion picture, documentaries, and other audio-visual means of communication works. These come under the cinematography works. This particular Shashank Redemption is one of the top grossers. You look at that photograph, people without the name Shashank Redemption, people would be able to know that it is from Shashank Redemption. The way the portrayal happens, extraordinary. Sound recordings, including songs, music albums, recording of songs, music albums, speeches, lectures, or any other audio recordings. If the king speaks in the UK and somebody was able to go and record it with his permission, obviously, if he records it and he holds that particular recording, that recording is copyrighted item. Though with permission, it has been recorded from that particular person. If the birds sing in the forest, somebody goes into the forest, he records it. It is his intellectual property. It is his copyrighted item. Radio and television broadcasts, something is broadcasted on television or in radio, the station reserves the right for its original copyright. Published editions of literary, dramatic, or all the previous items, published editions, the publisher would hold the copyright, and rights to broadcasting, to rebroadcast, and communication to the public of their broadcast. Again, this is held by the broadcaster. This is a copyright. Before I go there, finish this also. Generally, the ownership of the copyright goes to the author. The author is the person who creates that original works, and he is the owner of that particular copyright. With regard to copyright, the creative person would be the artist, the composer, the musician who created that. He becomes the author. Obviously, there are some small exceptions to it. 3 exceptions. If a person is in employment of another entity and he creates something in the normal course of employment, in his normal course of employment, then he creates the created copyright material would not be in his name, though he is the creator. It will be copyrighted in the name of the employer. It is called work made for hire. I've been engaged to sing a song for a particular person, for a composer. The composer pays for the time that I spend in making this recording. I sing the song, I hand it over to that particular person. I take money, done. I've done it for employment. I do it on a monthly basis. I need to make one recording. I am in his employment. Then I don't claim ownership for the original work. He does what? He employs musicians, he employs people who for the vocals, and he employs multiple people. He brings everything together and he composes the music. He is the owner of the entire composition. So once I am getting paid as an employee, I give away my right as the original work composer. So that's the reason whenever you create something, when you're in employment, the NDA and the documents, employment agreement that you sign, there is a clause which says that whenever you're creating a patent, you're creating a copyright, anything that you create when you're in the company, you're going to take it. The company would take it because we are paying you for the time. If the copyrighted material is commissioned by a patron and the patron and the author sign a work made for hire agreement, then the copyright is owned by the patron. An example of this may be a commission of a family or executive portrait. I bring in Picasso. I tell him that, boss, I need you to make a painting of me or painting of anything. I need you to make a painting of this particular wall. I just need a painting of this wall. You paint how this wall looks. If he paints it, obviously, because it is Picasso, it's going to be a lot of money. I'm going to pay him that money. And I am the owner of that painting. Tomorrow, Picasso cannot come back and say that, oh, I painted it. It is my expression. It's my original work. Yes, it's your original work, but it has been made for hire. I own the particular copyright now. So under employment or being commissioned will transfer the copyright. Copyrightability, the right to copyright. If the author sells the copyright, he created something on his own, but then there is an agreement where he sells that particular copyright to me, then the buyer owns the copyright. This statement is true regardless of whether the buyer is an individual corporation or some other form of entity, doesn't matter. Once I buy a particular copyrighted item, I don't have to be a corporation. I can be a company which has no limbs or eyes to look at and make a drawing. But still, if I am able to buy it out from that particular party and I own it, I have he has sold it and I have bought it, it is my copyrighted item. Now we'll go a little deep into the understanding of copyright. I told you we will compare Tolkien and J.K. Rowling. In both Tolkien's Lord of the Rings series and J.K. Rowling's series on Harry Potter, they have this concept of elves coming into play, magical creatures coming into play. But Tolkien was much before J.K. Rowling, and he was able to portray elves in a particular manner. J.K. Rowling also had elves in her series, but Tolkien was not able to claim copyright for that particular elves. Why? The important point lies here. A copyright provides legal protection regarding the original expression of the idea, not the idea itself. an idea can never be copyrighted. A copyright does not protect the ideas themselves. An idea cannot be copyrighted. Rather, it is the expression of the idea, the way the idea is presented, that is copyrighted. The elves represented in Tolkien is a lot different than the way elves are represented in the Harry Potter series. Anybody who is able to recognize this person, this is not Tolkien, obviously. We will go on for another 5 minutes, then we will take a quick 5 minutes break. Come on. Anybody who wants to take a rough shot at this guy. The people who came before were all easy. This guy, probably if you are good at comics, you might know. This guy is called Jack Kirby. He was a contemporary to Stan Lee, the famous Marvel fame artist. Stan Lee is a contemporary to him. They worked in Marvel together. Some point in time, Jack Kirby, he moved on. He jumped ships to DC. And he created a lot of characters for DC also. So the artists like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are the original work creators. They create the concept. Obviously, there will be a director who would ask these artists to create new characters. They go on, pull their hairs off, find out a concept, find out a setting, and find out the physical features, and then they come out with a particular character with different powers, different characteristics, multiple things come out there. Now, when you look at Jack Kirby, he went on from Marvel to DC. You look at DC, we had Flash. In Marvel, we had someone called Quicksilver. What is the similarity between these two guys? They both run faster. They are speedsters. Now, this is not the only case. A lot of examples that I can give you where a DC character and a Marvel character would be almost similar. You don't find any difference. Deathstroke, Deadpool, lot of characters, very, very, very similar. Deadshot, these are all similar characters. They have swords, they have guns, they dress up in red color. One is called Wade Wilson, the other one is called Slade Wilson. Name, even the name is, they just play with the name. One letter they change and they say this is a different character and that is a different character. In the case of Batman and Iron Man, Batman is a DC character and Iron Man is a Marvel character. Both are rich, both use technology, both are heroes. They fight for their particular city. So what I'm trying to bring out is the idea, though in both the cases is similar, the expression is a lot different. And the expression of that particular idea can be copyrighted. I cannot go on to create a t-shirt with Iron Man logo, Iron Man in front of in my t-shirt and say that, oh, it's not copyrighted. So Iron Man and Batman, it's both there. They are copying each other. Why can't I copyright? I can also create my own character, which has all these attributes, and I can wear it. But I cannot take an Iron Man, I cannot take a Batman and present it in my t-shirt. I cannot sell it out. That's the idea that I'm trying to drive. You cannot, the idea cannot be copyrighted. The expression of the idea can be copyrighted. Now, we will quickly take a 5 minutes break. I think it's about 4:55. We will reconvene 4:57. We'll reconvene at 5:05. 5 minutes break. I'll type it on the group. Four. Okay. Your cup of tea, come back. Okay, we are here. So we'll wait for the others in the next couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes. We'll wait. In the meanwhile, if you have any doubts, I'm ready to start answering the questions. Any practical problems that you're facing in relation to intangible assets, go ahead. Any other doubts also, if you have, we can discuss. Okay, so let's move on. Now, what does copyright protection mean? What is the protection that a copyright is able to bring? A copyright provides, it gives a bundle of exclusive rights to the owner or the author, and he has the sole right to either authorize or to prohibit from somebody doing the following activity. What are all the activities? To reproduce his work in entirety or in parts. So there is a musical composition that is there. The same can be recorded as a video. It can be recorded as an audio. It can be sang. It can be again recreated. The reproduction of this particular composition, even if you make the hum that happens in the starting to the lyrics, anything, if you're going to reproduce, you might have to take the permission of the artist. If you make a derivative version of it, which is very common these days, the author himself does the remix. A particular song comes out, there is a remix that comes. That's the derivative version of that particular original composition. These derivatives can be done only with the permission or authorization of the copyright holder or the author predominantly. To distribute copies by selling, renting, leasing, or lending them. Again, it has to be taken from the author. The author's permission needs to be taken. To perform it for the public, to recite, dance, or act, that has to be done with the permission of the author, and display of the work publicly, directly, or by way of films, TV, slides, or other devices or process. You have to take permission from the author. Now, when you look at it, these are two great artists from South India. One is Ilayaraja, the other is S.P. Balasubramaniam. One, Mr. Ilayaraja is a composer, and S.P. Balasubramaniam is a singer, an vocal artist. Now, Ilayaraja was the person who hired S.P. Balasubramaniam to sing a lot of songs for him, and they had their friendship. Now, a lot of years have passed, 30, 40 years, they worked together, they sang Ilayaraja has created a lot of songs, and SPB has sung a lot of songs for him. And after so many years, I think SPB has passed away, Ilayaraja is still alive. Before he passed away, SPB sang in a lot of concerts, and he picked up songs of Ilayaraja and he sang it on the podium. The same songs he has sung previously for Ilayaraja for hire, he has sung in the public with composers composing the music, the same music. Now, Ilayaraja, because he had taken the work on hire from SPB, he was able to file an injunction order. I mean, try to get an injunction order to stop him from performing abroad or performing in his shows by singing for the songs that he has composed. So reproduction of those songs was stopped. You can make a derivative out of it. Again, derivatives is also stopped. You cannot change the tone. You cannot change the modulation. You cannot, the tempo, you cannot change and say that this is derived version, because derived version is also stopped. You cannot perform it in public. Display of the work publicly or distributing it is also stopped. Spotify took directly from Ilayaraja these songs. But there were other companies which bought these songs from the producers of the movies. Now, what happens is SPB sang the song for Ilayaraja. Ilayaraja composed the music for the producers. This is the understanding. Now, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritties of it because it's the domain of lawyers. But the problem is SPB does not have a locus standi because he has done it only for Ilayaraja. But Ilayaraja claims that he is the original composer of the music and he has only given the right for the music to feature in the film rather than doing the work for the producer. So this is the stance that is there, and he is fighting out in the Madras High Court. This particular case is going on in the Madras High Court, where Spotify bought the rights for the songs. It has it on. We have the Spotify music where you have all the Ilayaraja songs, but then there were other companies also which bought those songs from the other producers who made the movies. Now, the recent Manjumel Boys that came in, it had Ilayaraja's song that featured, and display of the work publicly. It featured, and Ilayaraja sent a notice saying that if you don't cease and desist from displaying that song anymore, I will have to file a complaint against you. But the producers of that movie say that we have taken rights from the original producers and the companies. Though you are the original composer, you have done it on hire for the producers, and the producers have sold it to a company, and from that company we have taken no objection certificates. We are good. I don't know at what stage this particular problem is, but this area of copyright is a very murky area, is what I want to bring to your notice. As valuers, we don't know who's the actual owner of the composition or the copyright. Somebody creates it, somebody got it done through hire. Who is the original owner? Nobody knows. Therefore, whenever you're going to do a valuation, identifying the copyright is easy. Probably even economic benefit calculation will be pretty, it will be a little difficult, but it is possible. But ascertaining the ownership is all the more important. Get a legal understanding, not only from you, from an expert. Take a legal understanding, bring it as part of your other experts involved in your valuation report so that you can safeguard yourself. I took a legal expert's opinion who said that this particular asset belonged to this particular party based on all the records that is made available, and therefore based on that I am going to value this particular asset and I'm going to give the valuation report. So involvement of a legal expert becomes all the more important in the case of copyrights. Not only copyrights, intangibles generally. We did valuation for another intangible assets where the manufacturing process was something called starch is made. The companies start drilling for oil from the ground, the crude oil, and when they start drilling, the drill bit that they use to drill the ground, they heat up so much so, because it's solid against solid, so much heat is generated that the drill bit starts to melt. So dissipation of heat needs to happen. At the same time, it should not hinder the drilling process. Therefore, there is something, if you pour water and all, before it reaches that particular place, it will start to evaporate. So much heat is generated. To dissipate that, they create something called, they put in something called starch into the drill hole before they start drilling. This starch, it dissipates the heat as much as possible. And this creation of starch, it becomes a, the manufacturing of starch is a patented process. And one of my clients, they created the starch, and that patent they wanted it to be valued. And when we were valuing it, we took a legal opinion as to actually this, though they gave me certificates, they gave me the process, this and that, I am in no position to find out it is legally belonging to them. Therefore, I took a legal opinion to from a particular lawyer to read the particular certificate and tell me what geography this particular patent belongs to. How many years can it act? So if that particular patent comes to only India, it covers only India, somebody in Europe can do anything. And if I take the global revenue, it's a mistake that I'm making. If it can only extend for 5 years and I'm taking 20 years, 25 years estimated life, then I'm making a mistake. So I wanted somebody to read the entire certificate, the clauses and the law, and tell me all the questions, all the parameters, whether I'm taking, whether it's in line with what is actually present legally. We did that. And apart from that, we also took the expert opinion of a hydrocarbon expert to find out whether these guys, whatever they are saying, whether it is practically possible, because in the field, you should obviously know it. I took their help, and we also used the comparative method. I also took his help to find out what are all the other starch material that are available, other products that are available, which are used, and any of those products, whether it is being licensed out to other parties, the manufacturing process, whether it is licensed out, and what license fee are they paying, the royalty that they are paying. Has there been any recent transaction? Because public domain, we were not able to find out, but we were able to find out all this information from an expert. We took his testimonial and we added it as part of our experts involved, and the testimonial also we have attached as part of the report. Now this valuation report carries value. But if I do all this myself, with one, I don't have the knowledge. Two, if something goes wrong, if things, obviously in valuation, it's all, and particularly in intangible assets valuation, just like how the Kingfisher thing happened. You do a valuation, you say it's worth 3,000 crores. Today it's worth nothing. People are going to ask the question, how did you value it at 3,000 crores? Today it's zero. I don't want to listen anything from you. Why such a big blunder has happened? They will not understand what happened 1 year before, or 2 years before, or 10 years before. What is happening today is all that is going to matter. At COVID, during COVID, you have a hotel business, you go on to value something, you don't know what is the future going to look like. 4 years, 5 years, are we going to be in lockdown? Or 3 months down the line, are they going to lift the lockdown? You don't know. At that point in time, with whatever available information, you have done the valuation. You can only play with the cards that are dealt to you. So make sure that you bring everything on the valuation report. Take the help of experts, bring it in the valuation report. This is all that I'm trying to communicate. Now let's jump into valuation of copyrights. We have done with copyrights, understanding of copyrights. We'll go with valuation of copyrights. I'm not, as I told you previously, I would want you to ask questions and I'm going to answer it. I'm not going to the standards. I have the standards here with me, but I'm not going to open the standards because the standards it's pretty straightforward. We don't want to go into the standards. Now, selection methodology, certain parts I picked from the standard which is relevant. You'll have to find out which methodology you're going to choose, which approach you're going to choose. It is based on the basis of value, the terms, the purpose of valuation. For what purpose are you going to value? What are the terms of the agreement? What is the basis of value? Are you going to find out the liquidation value, fire sale value, or are you going to find out the orderly transaction value? What value are you going to try to find out? The respective strength and weakness of each valuation approach and method you will have to find out. Whether that particular methodology, if you use, whether it is going to suit your purpose, what is the strength, what is the weakness of that particular approach, you might have to know. The appropriateness of the method in view of the nature of the asset and the approaches or methods used by the participants in the relevant market. There will be an existing methodology which so far the market has been using for valuing that particular kind of asset. Are you using the same method or not? You should compare. You can make your own individual assessment, then go on to the market, make a comparison, find out whether you missed any point or not. Why are they using that method while I'm ignoring that method? Why am I using this method when they are not using that method? You should be able to compare and come to a conclusion. Availability of reliable information. If you don't have income related reliable information about the income that you're going to get in the future, there's no point in going and doing an income based approach of valuation. Income is not there. If you're not able to estimate, how can you do income based approach of valuation? If you're not able to get market information for calculating the market method, how do you go ahead and do the market based information? So all these factors you'll have to consider in finding the methodology. Now, one methodology only should I follow? Multiple methodologies can I follow? Same thing. You can do valuation based on one approach. You can do 2 approaches. You can do a combination of 2. You can give whatever percentage that you want to give. I give 50% for income method. 30% for market method, 20% for cost method, allowed. You are allowed to give any percentage. Only thing is, have a very solid foundation as to why a method has been chosen, why a method has not been chosen, why a weight or a percentage has been given for one method, and why another weight or percentage has been given for another method. You cannot say that I used all three methods, I total the value divided by 3. That's not going to work out. You'll also have to explain why you gave equal weight for all the methods. Because in most of the cases, only one method will be suitable, the most preferred method. And if that fails, you can go to the next method. And I hope everybody remembers the order. First, you start with the market method. If market method fails, or if it is not suitable at all, then you come to the income approach. Then if income approach, methodology and approaches I'm interchangeably using. Approach is like the direction that you take. From Chennai, if I have to go to Delhi, I'll have to go north. That's the approach. I can go through Kolkata, I can go through Mumbai. That's the methodology. That's the route that I'm going to take. So approach selection is what I'm talking about. Though in the slide I'm saying methodology selection. See, approach selection. Within the approach, 3 approaches, you can use any approach that any percentage you can use for any approach. That's the idea. Now, the reasons for choosing that approach and the weight that you give has to come out in your valuation report. In my report, I use all the 3 approaches. 3 approaches will be listed. What are the 3? What is the content of 3 approaches? What is the approach is explained, and I give a separate paragraph as to why that particular approach is chosen or not chosen. If you don't have market multiples available, readily available, or if it is a startup company and I am going to do a valuation, or let us say this is a copyright, this particular type of asset is not in existence, or reliable market information is not available, you're not able to get it. Say that I don't have this particular kind of asset, is a very new kind of asset. I have an algorithm which is written, which I want to be copyrighted. Similar kind of algorithm is not available anywhere, because all algorithm, the source code will not be disclosed at the copyrights office. They will only give the object code, which when they read out, nothing will be, you will not be able to make sense of it at all. The source code, nobody explains it. They'll not give it in the copyright office. So how do you say the source code that you have is comparable with another source code which is already copyrighted? And it can have a transaction. There would have been some transaction, but you will not know whether this source code and that source code is comparable at all. Or even if it is comparable, how do you value this and that? Qualitative aspects. Whether that source code can have 100 line items. This source code only have 20 line items. Will you assign value for how many lines that the code is running, or how many paragraphs it runs? So all this becomes very subjective. Therefore, I say based on these X, Y, Z reasons, this approach is not applicable. Then I go on to the next approach. Market approach is the primary approach that you have to take. If primary approach, market approach is not suitable, go to the income approach. If not, go to the cost approach. This is the water flow. In case you choose market approach, you can also do income approach and cost approach. If market approach is not applicable, you go to income approach. Don't take market approach as the, sometimes you can take secondary approach, but cost approach is the more relevant one. But in cases of intangible assets, there is a small twist. With relation to copyright, sometimes market approach comes the secondary approach also. Reasoning the differences, make sure that you make some understanding of the approaches in the report itself. When different approaches results in widely different indications of value, then you have made some mistake in choosing one of the approaches. You've taken cost approach and income approach. Cost approach gives you 20,000 rupees. Income approach gives you 20 crore rupees. This much divergence in value cannot exist. You cannot take 20,000 plus 20 lakhs divided by 2. Don't do it. When there is deep divergence in your values based on 2 different approaches, one approach you have chosen is wrong. You can have 20 crores and 18 crores. You arrive at 19 crores, that's fine. 15 crores, 20 crores is reasonable, but you cannot take 20 lakhs and 20 crores. That's the point I'm trying to drive here. In case if you get that kind of divergence, then to understand why, you should go on and perform procedures to understand why there is such difference in valuation in the 2 approaches. In such case, the valuer should return to the selection process to determine whether one of the approaches provides a better or more reliable indication of value than the other. Chuck off the other one and do the one valuation, follow that one method which is more appropriate. Market method, income approach, you find out income approach is more relevant, check out market approach. Don't take market approach, add some small value and try to do a weighted average, because tomorrow when somebody picks it up and asks you a question, you're bringing in trouble. One is very clearly, if you think that approach is the one that you'll have to follow, check out the other. Now, I've listed all the items that are available, intangible assets that has come to my mind and which is available in the public domain. This is not me. This is already available in the public domain, where they are giving what are all the approaches you can take for a particular kind of asset. Patents, technology and copyrights. You go with income approach as the first one, market approach as the second one, and finally you go with cost approach. I write a book. The pen and the paper is the only cost that I have. I go on to copyright it. What is the cost? If I go cost approach, how much is the value that I can get? Literally nothing. But I can make thousands of copies of it. I can sell it in the market and I can make a lot of money. J.K. Rowling, probably she has spent a couple of pounds on the pen and paper, probably even taking the publishing, etc., making it as a hardbound cover book, all that put together, couple of thousand pounds she would have spent. But then what is the revenue that she is able to make out of it? Enormous. So income approach is the first approach that you'll have to go with. Then if income approach is not feasible, try market approach, try to avoid cost approach. There are certain other categories of intangible assets like assembled workforce or internally developed software, where cost approach would be the predominant factor. In the case of internally developed software and assembled workforce, the idea is not to go ahead and sell the internally developed software. You will not outright sell it, but it is more for financial reporting purposes. You have created the software, you want to show it in your balance sheet. What will you do? On cost basis only, you are allowed to show as per the standards also. Therefore, cost approach is the first, then income or market approach, and tertiary you again go with market or income approach. Brand is also similar to brand, trademark is similar to copyright and patents. You go with income approach, then you go with secondary, and then finally you go with the cost approach. Customer relationship has a small twist here. I have a relationship with a customer. The best information that I can get is how much income that I can make from that particular customer. So therefore, income approach takes the first stance. But can I market this customer relationship to somebody? No. How will that value be calculated? Again, based on how much he can earn from this particular relationship. That is only is going to be there. Again, it boils down to income only. There is no market that is available. What relationship, how much stronger relationship that I have with a customer I cannot find out a similarity for that in the market. Therefore, market approach is the last. What I am spending, what is the cost that I am putting in maintaining that relationship, that can be the secondary approach. So income approach is the primary approach, secondary approach is the cost approach, and finally tertiary would be the market approach. Cost and market approach. Earlier I discussed on overall intangible asset. Now we are going specifically to copyright. In copyright, cost and market approach are the secondary and tertiary kind of valuations approaches that you can take. These are like your spare wheel. You don't use it. In case if the income approach fails, there's no other possibility. You go to the market approach. If market approach also fails, there is no other reason. Then at least for the paper, you want some money to be made, go for the cost approach. Now, cost approach has, I'm not going to go deep into it, very brief. Replacement cost method, reproduction cost method. Replacement cost, you're going to replace it with another product with the same utility. Reproduction, similar product you're going to build. What is the cost that you're going to incur? For replacing this product, how much you're going to spend, that's your replacement cost method. Similar product you're going to build, it's going to be the reproduction cost method. Two methods in cost approach, not suitable for copyrights, don't do it. If it boils down to cost approach, I don't think you should do the valuation at all. There's no information, then the copyright does not have any value. Market approach on the other hand has a little bit of credibility. Price, valuation multiples, cap rates, guideline pricing methods, these methods are all available. You look at the market, you are able to find out a similar kind of copyright which is already sold. Very tough, too much qualitative aspects, very little quantitative aspects. You are able to find out that so many number of copies of the book I have sold. This person also has sold the same number of copies. He is able to sell it for so much, but then the author, how many other books has he published? How many books have I published? I published only one book. I have sold about 10,000 copies of this book. That guy, he has also sold 10,000 copies of this book, but he has published more than 10,000 books. What is the value that he can get? I cannot command the same value. So that's a problem. So there are a lot of qualitative aspects attached to it. You can try to adjust for all the qualitative aspects, but the more manual addition, deletion, and alteration that you do, the more the explanation that you'll have to give out in your report, and the dilution. There's a dilution of the process in itself. Moving on, income approach. This is your steering wheel, where income would be the major driving factor for most of the copyright related valuations. You have 5 methods. Again, excess earnings method, premium profit method, greenfield method, distributor method will not predominantly apply. In fact, greenfield method and the distributor method is not going to apply for copyrights at all. I will put them in the least bracket. You cannot apply greenfield method and distributor method. What is greenfield method? How many of you have heard about the concept of greenfield project? How many of you know what is a greenfield project is? You would have heard of the term greenfield airport is coming up near my place.
Building from scratch.
From scratch. Beautiful. So it is a real estate term. You go to the land, literally there is grass in the land, and you start building up from the grass. You remove the grass and you start building up. That's a greenfield project. From scratch you are building. That's why it's called greenfield project. The same way, valuation would happen as if you are starting from scratch. That method is called the greenfield method. And distributor method, Coca-Cola is there. Coca-Cola, with the brand name, they are able to make a commanding amount of profit. But a distributor for Coca-Cola is also able to make some profit. Therefore, what they try to do is they try to find out, as a distributor, how much profit would I be able to make? And based on that, if I remove that, there is multiple things in one particular company. There will be multiple intangible assets. The primary intangible asset will be valued under excess earnings method or relief from royalty method, and the secondary or tertiary intangible asset will be valued under the distributor method. If you take Apple, not just the Apple logo is going to help you, technology is going to help you, the marketing trademark is going to help you, a lot of copyrighted source codes that go into it, that is going to help you. So much of intangible asset is going inside. Goodwill is there, that is going to go inside. Customer base is there. So much intangible assets go into one single product in one company. There are Apple. This is one product. They also have multiple other products. iTunes is there. This is not a physical product at all. It's a software. There are Apple. There are a lot of different products are there. Each product has intertwined intangible assets. In that situations, the distributor method is used to calculate the tertiary or the fourth, the second, the third, fourth intangible asset, which is not the primary intangible asset. You use the distributor method. So these two methods don't apply. The first method and see the premium profit method, pretty much very similar. How much are you able to earn excess because of this particular intangible asset? So these two methods, how much are you able to add more? If the copyright is purchased by another company, let us say Warner Bros. Bought out Harry Potter, the copyright from the particular from J.K. Rowling. When I'm doing the valuation of Warner Bros. In Warner Bros, I can do excess earning method or premium profit method to do this would be the second layer where I can do an analysis and I can figure out this is the value that I attach to the copyright of this particular product. If you remember Spider-Man, the Marvel created Spider-Man was sold off to Sony. So the Spider-Man that you're talking about that you see on the screen, every time Spider-Man shows up on screen, though Marvel created it, they have to pay a royalty to Sony for Spider-Man to show up or the X-Men to show up. Every time they bring it up on the screen, Marvel pays, though they created it, they are paying it Sony to bring it up on screen. So Sony is able to make money out of it. How much are they able to make more? That's the premium profit or excess earnings method. Relief from royalty method is the most appropriate method in my limited understanding for copyrights. how much can I earn by licensing out, taking a royalty for this particular copyrighted material, or how much should I pay somebody else for copywriting this particular material for me to make profit or for me to make money out of it. So relief from royalty is the most appropriate method with relation to copyrights. So relief from royalty is pretty straightforward. As I told you previously, with even the patent case, I go on to calculate, I go on to find out, look into the market, find out, are there any similar companies, similar products exist? I have written a book. That book, anybody else, the same kind of genre, same kind of experience, same kind of global presence, geographical presence, am I able to find out another author who has sold a book? Has he licensed it out? How much has he licensed it out? The Star Wars franchise, how much is the merchandising franchise or merchandising royalty are they getting for that figurines? I will take that and I will take it for some other franchise. Let us say the X-Men franchise. The figurine, I will be able to compare it with the Star Wars franchise, and based on that, I will be able to find out, okay, this is the royalty that this party is able to get for these figurines. I am also able to, I have also created so many. I will be able to get so much. And based on that, these are all futuristic in nature. I make a calculation, discount that, find out today's value. That will be your relief from royalty. There are certain risk factors. I'll keep the last, we are at 5:35, 5:36. I'll go on for another 9 minutes. Last 15 minutes, we'll open up for discussion. Quickly, let me finish a couple of risk factors. When you're doing this valuation, this is important. You'll have to understand there are some risk factors. The risk that you normally calculate when you're calculating the discount rate for tangible assets, for businesses, you cannot use the same mind to look at intangible assets also. In the case of intangible assets, the risk is actually very high compared to a tangible asset of similar value. Why? Because at the end of the day, the tangible asset, at least it can be sold for scrap. Intangible assets, you cannot sell it for scrap. All the assumptions that you make for intangible assets, it's all there on the mind. It's all there. It's a common shared perspective rather than the real world example. In the intangible assets, if it is specialized for its current use, then it becomes very risky. When you compare it with when it has more multiple potential uses. I have a character which comes in the comics, which comes in the anime, which comes in written or in a story. It can be merchandised. It comes in a movie. It has multiple uses. Then that intangible asset has a lesser risk. But I have a character which comes only in the movies. It cannot be. It has not come out anywhere else. How much that particular character's intangible asset is worth? It becomes very, very risky. When I calculate, I'll have to give it a higher risk. The discount rate should be going higher. Single intangible assets or a group of assets, when you compare, if there is a single intangible asset, it becomes very risky. If there is a group of assets which work together to form in selling a particular product, then the group of assets have a lower risk than the single intangible asset. Now, there are routine activities and non-routine activities. If there is something that, let us say R&D, I have a patent for a research and development related matter, and I have an R&D for a manufacturing matter. Manufacturing is a routine activity. Research and development is a non-routine activity. The risk that is involved in an intangible asset that is related to R&D is much higher than the risk that is involved in a manufacturing activity. This is a routine activity which is giving me regular revenue. I'll be able to immediately find out what is the return that I'm able to get from that particular intangible asset. And when I go to R&D, I don't know. This R&D can work out. This R&D may not work out. The entire R&D team can be chucked off. I can buy out technology from other countries, other companies. So all that uncertainty is already there in R&D. Intangible asset related to it also will be carrying the same amount of risk. Therefore, risk is higher. Life of the asset, the longer the life of the asset, intangible asset, the more risky it becomes. What is relevant today might not be relevant 10 years from now. The manufacturing process of a typewriter, let us say, it's a patented technology. Who's using typewriters today? 25 years back, 30 years back, it would have been relevant. Today, it's not relevant. I'll tell you, mobile phones that you carry, the laptops that you carry, it will change form, it will evolve. The QWERTY keyboard that you have, the QR codes that you have, all this is patented items. The barcodes that you have, all this is patented items. All that will go away. And then new things would evolve. At that point in time, from today, 20 years down the line, computers will not have screens like this. People are talking about putting up a chip in your brain where you'll be able to see things as you operate, as you think. It will be able to understand and give you a feedback. The entire concept of looking at a screen or having a camera goes for a toss. So the longer the life of the asset, the more risky it becomes. How well you are able to estimate the cash flow. If you are able to readily calculate the cash streams that are coming from that particular intangible asset, it has lower risk. If it is less estimatable, it has a lot of other factors coming into play, then it is more risky. Same case as R&D. R&D, what is it contributing to the, how is that intangible asset able to generate revenue versus a manufacturing process related intangible asset, or leave manufacturing process. Go to the trademark. How much is it able to immediately bring me revenue? I am very much able to calculate that. Compared to the R&D, you'll be able to see the difference. Readily available cash flow, less risky. Not readily available or not readily estimatable, it becomes very risky. Now, other factors that you'll have to take in mind when you're calculating the discount rate, risk-free rate. Look at the risk-free rate whenever you're calculating. Usually, as a thumb rule, copyrights last from the life of the author till the life of the author. If the author owns it, till the life of the author, it is owned by the author, plus 60 years. And in certain countries, it's plus 75 years. The copyright is held. Somebody has died about 1950, 1960 years, he has died, and he owned a copyright. 1970, let us say, 50 years has passed. Another 10 more years he has. The particular family holds that copyright. Then when you are calculating the revenues, you will calculate for 10 years. You should only calculate for 10 years. You cannot calculate for you cannot calculate terminal value, mind it, because only for 10 years you have the copyright. Otherwise, after the 10 years, anybody can use it. You don't hold monopoly over it. So after for the 10 years, when you are calculating the risk-free rate, calculating the discount rate, you have to calculate the risk-free rate also only for the 10 years. You cannot take a very long period calculation. If it is for 5 years, look at the RBI risk-free rate for 5 years. There is 5 years, 10 years, different risk-free rates are published. Take the estimated 5-year risk-free rates and you use it if it is for 5 years. So you should match that. Cost of equity, what is the cost of equity for that particular company, for that particular person? You'll have to take into account cost of debt, incremental cost of debt for that particular company. Don't take the current debt, cost of debt. Look at what would be the increment. Already they are having a debt level and they are servicing it at 9.5%, 10%. They are taking more debt. That would bring the cost of debt to 10.5%. You should take 10.5%. Don't they take the existing 9.5%. Weighted average cost of capital, you take the equity debt, you will be able to find out. Look at the future. Don't take, ideally, the best practice would be to look at the future, find out what would be the debt equity ratio, and based on that, you calculate the cost of weighted average cost of capital. Obviously, economic life, I told you, 60 years, you'll have to take the help of an expert, find out what is the economic life. If the economic life is there for 20 years, you can only do it for 20 years. The normal way in which we calculate 5 years of existence, and from there, infinite existence will not apply in the case of intangible assets at all. It can be the best of patent, it can be the best of copyright, only for a limited period it is available to you. After that, it is there out there in the public domain. All this came into force because of capitalism. Earlier, all this did not exist. People were able to, if somebody was able to do something, I see that, I reproduce, I do it also. People were okay. Then people, for promotion of science and capitalism, governments came together and they signed off on multiple pacts and treaties where they protected individual contributions to science through monopolizing the creation of science and processes and art. All this, they monopolized it, but the monopoly is only for a limited period. That's the driving factor. Find out in your country, in the geography in which it is registered, how long can it be protected, and only take the cash flows for that particular period. Who would be an expert? There are a lot of people. When you look at what area you want an expert for, if it is legal, how many years it's going to be copyrighted, how many years the copyright will stand, how many what is the geography for which the copyright would stand, all these factors, whether this particular person is the actual owner or has it been passed on to somebody else. I can be the owner, I can be the original creator. I would have given the particular character for figurine creation or merchandising the particular item. I would have given it to some party, but I will still hold on to creating movies with it. I would still hold on to creating animations with it. I will be creating the comics with it. So I would divide it into multiple pieces, copyright individual items, and I will give it away. What right is with me, what right is with the other party, all this has to be taken from a lawyer. Second thing is, when you look at comparables, you take an expert who is a veteran in that particular field. If you are taking an artwork, if a painting is there, in one of my previous this thing also session CPs, I have shown you a painting which is called the suprematist composition. Couple of strokes, straight lines, boxes, rectangles, and it is sold for millions of dollars in the market. How would, as an individual, I would not be able to value it. I would have to take an expert to find out who was the composer or who was the person who was the painter who drew it. What it is and how it is being valued will be more dependent on the expert rather than us. There is this simple story which goes on like this. A father, he says that his son comes, he says, all my fellow mates, they are coming by car. I'm not having a car. I desperately need a car. He thought he'll get a new car. His father says, you take this car. And he drives this old car back home, back to school and back. And he says, oh, everybody's laughing. This is an old car, about 15, 20 years back. This car is manufactured, so I don't want it. Then he takes his son to a car showroom. And they ask for exchange of this car. They say a very paltry sum, and they say that, okay, we can throw it. Ideally you should scrap it, but then you can throw it in and you can get a new car for let us say 5% of the new car's price. And then this guy, he takes it to a auction house and he shows his car, and the auction head, he comes down, he greets this man and he says, how were you able to preserve this particular car? This is a limited edition car which is available only with 10 other guys in the entire world. And this particular car has a value of whatever the new car's price was, it is 100 times of that particular car's price. You would be able to get if you are able to auction it out in this particular market. So the story, it has the moral where only if you look at deep, if you go and find out the right person, you will be able to arrive at the good value. The same thing applies here also. Expert, you should reach out the right expert who has knowledge in that particular intangible asset or in that particular field to arrive at the right value for that particular intangible asset. So if you are doing an intangible asset valuation, a lawyer is important. The second thing is which vertical you are working with: manufacturing, oil and gas, communications, that particular field, in that particular technology. You should go out and reach out an expert who would be able to, you don't know whether he's the right person or not, but you'll have to speak with multiple people. The person who has more knowledge about this particular asset, he will come out to you with facts. You will be able to identify that person. Finally, last item that I would want to conclude with is the tax amortization benefits. Original owner of the intangible asset will not get tax amortization benefit at all because he's the creator. How will he create? How can he recognize it in his books of accounts? Most of the cases, he will not be able to recognize it in his books of accounts for depreciation. But if I am a buyer, I have bought the rights from J.K. Rowling for a couple of $1 million from J.K. Rowling for Harry Potter books. I will be able to depreciate it over time. This depreciation effect needs to be given in the cash flow because my tax is reduced in the coming years. Therefore, this depreciation effect and the tax benefit needs to be given in my calculation of the value for that particular intangible asset. So self-generated intangible assets might not have tax amortization benefit. Acquired intangible assets have tax amortization benefit. This needs to be taken into account when you're going ahead and doing evaluation under the income approach for intangible assets. So with this, I will stop the presentation. We have 10 more minutes. Any questions? I am ready to answer. Please go ahead. Gives a very broad view. Because it is copyright, we stopped with the relief from royalty method. The other methods, when we go with patents, when we go with trademarks, assembled workforce, going forward, the next CP session, when we are taking a part of the intangible asset, what happens is we will club a couple of intangible assets together, probably patents, assembled workforce, and one more item together, trademarks, and then we will do a presentation where we will explore each and every method separately. One final session, probably we will look at the case studies on these, where we will have numbers, how the numbers flow into the business model and how we are able to arrive at a value. One or two case studies we will do as a separate item. Yeah, the financial model, yes, we will do it as a case study. One particular session we will do it as a case study.
Here I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Intangible assets covers goodwill also, sir.
Intangible assets cover goodwill. Goodwill, yes. Beautiful question. Goodwill is an accounting terminology. What happens is recognition of the intangible asset would have happened at a lower rate than actually predicted. Now, when you take Apple, lot of tangible assets are there, lot of recognized intangible assets are there. Because of restriction in accounting for that intangible asset, it is restricted to a certain value. Because self-generated value for that logo, you can only so much of expense that you can capitalize. But actually, what is being accounted and what is actually available in the market, there is a difference. When you look at the difference, that is adding up as the goodwill. So goodwill in itself does not have an existence as an intangible asset, but the remainder, the left out items of what is being recognized and what is not recognized as an intangible asset, that adds up to become the goodwill. It can be valued by calculating the value of all other intangible assets, and if you are not able to allocate anything to a specific item, that becomes the goodwill.
But here the question is, sir, actually this IBB NCLT cases and all, when the company comes into liquidation or other thing, is there any value of this intangible assets, sir?
The goodwill will not be there because already liquidation is happening. There will not be any goodwill there. But intangible assets, yes. If they, let us say, if liquidation is happening and you hold a particular process, patented technology that you are holding, which is an intangible asset, you hold the patent certificate, you can sell it off. It can be sold off to a company separately, and that has a value, that is an intangible asset.
Here, one more example, sir, in this intangible assets, say this software technology you have purchased for software for say some transaction, and the
Correct.
company is going to liquidate. The company is going to liquidate. In such case, can we give any value to the particular software already purchased and used?
If you have purchased from, if it is a shrink wrapped software, I bought something from Microsoft, I am using it in my laptop. If I can transfer it along with my laptop, along with the laptop's value, I can, if it is already merged with the laptop, along with the laptop value, I can allocate some value to it. But in case, if I'm not doing that, I have commissioned somebody to create a software for me, an access management software I have commissioned and I have created. And it is there in my balance sheet, I can separately monetize it. That can be separately valued. In the case of Ramco is a cement manufacturing company. They also what they did is they created an ERP for their own internal purpose. They created it. It was working so fine that they created a new wing. They demerged into Ramco IT, where they started making these softwares and selling out into the market, public. So they have commissioned and they have created, they were capable of creating an ERP, and information technology itself, they were able to create using their IT team. Now Ramco is able to make certain softwares for aircraft. When you have aircraft autopilot to land the aircraft, they have softwares to do it, which Ramco is making. So this kind of software they make, and which is marketable separately, it can be recognized as an intangible asset and we have to value it separately.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sure. Fine. I think pretty much we have come to the end of the session. I would conclude the session with my favorite quote from Albert Einstein. Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value, which we as registered valuers are trying to become. Take life easy. Elections are all over. Now we have elected so many MPs and MLAs, and it's now time for us to work hard, make more money so that we can afford for those MPs and MLAs. So we have to take care of them. We have elected them. Now we have to take care of them. Who will pay the taxes? We'll have to earn more, pay taxes, and we have to take care of them. So good time to work. Let's stay connected. In case of any doubts, you can get in touch with me. This is my contact details. Kajal or anybody from the Views of the Foundation, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Hi.
So we come to the end of this CEP. Thank you very much, sir, for a very comprehensive lecture. You have covered the topic very nicely and in detail. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, participants, for your participation. Please share your feedback. Thank you, Kajal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, every participant.